Beautiful. All right, so let's dive in. Habits. Such a big, interesting topic that no one talks about and can be such a game changer. So, why is this important? And why, as a society and a culture, do we, in my opinion, generally get this sort of stuff pretty wrong? We make it way harder on ourselves than we need to be. There's this like glorification of hustle culture, and you just need to be working 28 hours a day and 10 days a week. And if you were just more motivated, if you weren't so lazy, if you were just better, you could do this. We internalize so much of this critical, negative self talk that just says, well, I'm not good enough, or I can't do this, or I'm not the type of person who's good at making big changes. And all of that is false. So I give you full permission to let go of all those preconceived notions, let go of all that harsh, critical, negative judgment and self talk, let go of all the times we've tried to do something new and different and it didn't work. It's not your fault. Feels helpful. You can even just like brush it off of you, shake it off energetically, just like let it go. It's not yours to own, no matter what society would tell you. Because what's the messaging? What do we hear, right? Well, these people, they get up at 5 a.m. and they go to the gym every day and they eat super healthy. And what do we immediately think? We immediately think, well, that's not me. We think there must be something different about them, that they are capable of that, and I am somehow not capable of that. That might be the inner voice that a lot of us hear when we think about successful people or people who have the habits that we want, that we pine for, that we can't seem to make happen. And then we feel bad about ourselves as if we have somehow done something wrong, or as if we are somehow bad because we can't make that happen. But that is the furthest thing from the truth. So I ask you as we go into this workshop today to just go in with an open mind and being willing to let go of everything that you've ever heard about motivation and habits and systems and goals. Because think about it, if you're here, then all of that you've been thinking for a long time hasn't worked for you. If it was working for you, you wouldn't have signed up for this workshop tonight. So you're obviously looking for a solution and looking for something that serves you better. So that is what I would be so deeply honored to offer you tonight. So once again, full permission, let everything you've known up until this point go out the window. If it creeps back in any point in the workshop, notice that thought with compassion. Maybe write it down on a piece of paper, burn it later, throw it outside, whatever you need to do. But that doesn't have to be yours. That doesn't have to be yours. So what we're going to do instead today is we're going to think about hacks and systems and how to work with our brains instead of against our brains. The reason that we get so frustrated with ourselves is we want to make a big change and we want to do it immediately and we want to do it tomorrow. And our brains are hardwired against big changes. Our brains do not like that. They want to feel safe. They want to feel secure. They want to feel, even in this mundane repetition, that is where our brains want to go. So we try and make these huge changes literally overnight, which is what everyone does for their New Year's resolution. They say arbitrarily on this one day of the year, January 1st is the day I'm going to pick. I'm going to wake up and I'm going to be a totally different person. And somehow magically it's going to work this time when it's not worked all the other times that I've tried to make the change before then. And it's not your fault that it didn't work. Your New Year's resolution was doomed to fail because your brain is hardwired against it. So what we're going to work with tonight is how to rewire your brain in a way that allows it to accept that change so it sticks. Because that's something I heard in what all of you said when you introduced yourselves. So I want the consistency. I want these new habits to last. I want this to be something that I can rely on. In the habits world, we say we want to automate those habits to where you don't have to think about it anymore. It's just part of you. So that's where we're going. So to start, very interesting statistic, 40 to 50% of the actions you take in a day are habitual. I'll say that again. 40 to 50% of the actions that you take in a day are habits. And how can you identify what a habit is? It's the things you do without having to think about doing. When's the last time you woke up and got out of bed and had to think, am I going to brush my teeth this morning? Or did you somehow just magically find yourself at the sink with your toothbrush in your hand and it didn't require an ounce of conscious thought? Or the last time you backed your car out of your driveway, did you have to think, all right, I'm going to buckle my seatbelt, I'm going to turn the key in the ignition, I'm going to look behind me, I'm going to put the car in reverse. At one point, we had to do that when we were 16 and learning how to drive, but now that's an automated habit. Your brain goes on autopilot. You don't even have to think about it. So 40 to 50% of the actions we take in a day are that autopilot. That neural connection is already deeply made in your brain to where it's automated. You don't have to think about it. It just happens. And that's a great thing. The reason that our brains do that is they're looking to conserve energy. They're looking to make things easier. So if you think of our ancestors, the cavemen living in prehistoric days, they wanted to have mental energy and capacity to fight nearly constant threats that could be popping up around them. They didn't have time to be making all of these tiny decisions throughout the day. The brain was seeking efficiency. If I can get some of these everyday mundane things on autopilot, then I have all this energy to focus on, all right, what am I going to do when the saber-toothed tiger crawls up into camp in the middle of the night, you know? So our brains have not evolved past that, even though our modern lives have. Our brains just seek to automate, seek to conserve energy, seek to make it as easy as possible, make fewer decisions, conserve all of that energy. The good news is we can use that to our advantage. We can learn to make habits the same way that brushing your teeth or backing your car out of the driveway is, and we can use that automation for the habits that we want. We can make the habits that we want easy and automatic and ingrained so you don't have to think about them. We'll also go through some strategies tonight on how to make the bad habits that we don't want really unappealing and really hard. So it's not so easy. For instance, if you didn't want to back your car out of the driveway anymore, we'll go through strategies that will prevent that habit from ever starting. So does that make sense? Does that feel like the place we're all here to explore? Awesome, lovely. So I know a lot of you didn't really come here with a specific habit or goal in mind, but as we chat, I want you to start thinking about what is a direction I would like to move? What is a habit I would like to automate? What is something I would like to become that currently feels out of reach? And I'm going to read you a quote from James Clear, his book, Atomic Habits. Cannot recommend it highly enough. 11 out of 10, absolutely amazing. I've read a lot of habit books, and this is far and away the best one. And if I can only recommend one, this is the one I would recommend. He also has a really stellar email list, really good presence on social media. So if reading a whole book feels overwhelming, there are other ways you can get really great gems and nuggets of wisdom from this guy. So you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits. I'll say that again. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits. So let's break that down a little bit. We've all been indoctrinated to think with our New Year's resolutions, well, if I just make this goal, somehow the act of making a goal will motivate me and somehow will make it more possible if I speak it into existence and I say, this is what I'm going to do, and I make this goal, that's going to make it happen. The problem is you're setting yourself up for the end without giving yourself any tools on how to get there. It's like putting a dot on the map and saying, someday I'd really like to visit San Diego, but not looking at Google Maps, not getting out an atlas, not making any sort of trajectory or route to actually get to San Diego, but just saying, well, if I put the pin on the map, it's got to happen, right? That's essentially what we're doing when we just make a goal and just throw it out there with no structure, no support, no actual pathway to get there. So you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your habits. Making the goal is not the solution. Making the habit is the steps that get you to the goal. The habits are the interstates that drive you all the way across the country and eventually end you up in San Diego, where you want to go. Or said another way, this one I feel like hurts even a little bit more, but James Clear is like right to the heart when he writes. He said, winners and losers have the same goals. Success is the product of daily habits, not once in a lifetime transformation. Winners and losers have the same goals. Success is the product of daily habits, not once in a lifetime transformation. Think about that. Every NFL team in the NFL wants to win the Super Bowl. Every team has a similar goal. If it's not win the Super Bowl, it's to win as many games as possible. They don't go into the season saying, yeah, we play professional football. We don't really care if we win or lose. It's fine. That's intramural level football. But NFL football, everybody wants to win. They have the same goals. The goal is not what sets them apart. The goal is not what helps them achieve success. It's the steps that they take and implement every day that end up actually letting them reach that goal. So this is just another great example. Throw your old patterning out the window. I know it's hard to part with, but it's not about making a goal. It's not about, I just need to be more motivated. I just need to buckle down. I just need to power through. Doesn't actually get you there. Fair? Cool. Any questions so far? All right, I'll keep going. So before that negative self-thought starts creeping in again, saying, well, I can't do that. I'm not really cut out for this. That sounds really hard. I don't know if I could make that happen. I'll use myself as an example. I get up with the sun most days of the week. I meditate, I practice yoga, I go to the gym almost every day of the week. I take a hot shower and I do my Ayurveda oil massage. I scrape my tongue. I care for my sense organs. I make healthy food for breakfast. I bring healthy food with me for lunch. There's a lot of things. Like my morning routine is like hour and a half minimum. And that didn't happen overnight. But the thing is, I am not special. I am not some crazy blessed with abnormal levels of motivation. I am not some crazy person who like just magically can wake up and do this. I am the same as anyone. I just learned to build the systems. I just learned to build the habits that move me in the direction that I want. For me, that was really great health. That was an ulcerative colitis diagnosis 10 years ago that I said, this is not my reality. What do I need to change to where I'm in control of my health and I experience health every day? So the habits, the systems, is what got me there. And I'm not special. You could do the exact same thing with whatever habits you're trying to implement. So just want to say that I am proof that it is possible and it does not take superhuman anything. It just takes a willingness to be open, a willingness to try new things and let go of all of that old preconceived patterning about how you think motivation and habits and goals work. Cool. All right, so I'd like to take a minute, and if you feel so inclined to be creative, grab a piece of paper perhaps, or if you like to doodle on a screen, you can do that, but some sort of blank space for creation in whatever way calls to you. Pencil, markers, colors, whatever feels super amazing tonight. And then I want you to start thinking about what this habit, this transformation, these things you'd like to do that will serve you, getting rid of the things that don't serve you. What will you look like once you've implemented that? What will that person feel like? What will they act like? I want you to personify this either in writing or drawing. You can make yourself a little superhero with a cape. However it shows up to you is 100% okay. But just think, if I were able to do this thing that I really want to do, what would I look like? What would be different about me? Where would I be? Who would I be with? How would I be spending my time? What would I have accomplished? Thinking about what lies on the other side. I'm purposely keeping it a little bit vague, but let me know if you'd like a little more direction than that, and I'm happy to narrow it down a little bit. But if not, just see what comes up for you. Take maybe 2 more minutes-ish, if that feels like enough time for folks to feel complete. All right, we feeling good about wrapping up? Would anyone like to share?
Sure.
All right,
I'm just gonna read it off. It's probably gonna be the easiest thing.
sure.
Um, and this is just me,
Yeah,
but someone who is able to help others on a more consistent level, someone who is able to be more stable, they can see when changes need to happen, who can be strong for others when they are weak, someone who can lift others up, be able to pull the best out of everyone, and to see the best in others.
solid. What would you call that person?
Explain. What do you mean?
Does that feel like Jeremiah 2.0? Does that feel like being a giver? Does that feel like being a healer? Does that feel like being a person that's involved in the community? If you had to surmise it and just get the
Hmm.
theme of all of those things, what does it feel like?
I think it's going to be a balance between mm, kind of being more selfless, but also at the same time realizing there's a balance on the other side of not swinging too far to one side of the pendulum, but keeping a balance within the middle, but being able to take strengths that I have now and deepen them even more and take some of these weaknesses and turn them into strengths so that I can better help other people's, other people in like a serving manner,
Yeah, I hear your desire to show up and serve. And you realize that to do that, you have to take care of yourself first. You can't pour from an empty cup. So
right?
take such good care of yourself that you have excess to share with others. Yeah,
Exactly.
solid. Thanks. Brian, did I see you unmute like you wanted to share?
Sure, I can share. Yeah, if I were able to do what I wanted to do, what would be different about me? What I wrote was that I'd feel more energy and aliveness, like more consistently. Yeah, maybe feel a little bit more relief and like less anxiety. Um, Enjoy my time. Yeah, be more in the flow. Just like feel healthier and like trust in myself overall a little bit more.
Yeah, a lot of health oriented stuff in there.
Mm.
Little vata pacifying, perhaps. Yeah. And what's like can you surmise, is there an overall sense or feel that all of those things have in common?
Hmm. Gosh. Maybe just like being more connected to myself,
Ah,
like that.
mm-hmm. I love that. Yeah. Beautiful. Thanks for sharing.
Hmm.
Yeah. So the reason we start here with, you know, what would it look like? What would it feel like if I were the person that I want to be? Is that your brain currently very likely doesn't believe that you are that person. The first place we always start with habit evolution is identity. Your brain doesn't believe the thought, well, I'm the kind of person that in Jeremiah's example can always pull the best out of other people. Or maybe Brian's mind might be saying, well, I'm not the kind of person that always feels like I have a lot of energy and am really enjoying my time, you know? There's this cognitive dissonance, if you're into psychology at all, where you have this perception of who you are, and you think that to be able to accomplish these things that you want, you have to be a different person, which in a sense is true. There are skills and habits, which we'll talk about, that are what are going to get you to be that new person that you don't feel like you already are. So the first and arguably most important step with any habit evolution is to start thinking about your identity, how you view yourself, and how you would like to view yourself. So your homework, one of many after this workshop, is to take a sticky note. And you've probably heard, well, you write a sticky note and you write a reminder to yourself to do what you want to do. No, scrap it. That's the old way, unhelpful, doesn't work. You're going to write on a sticky note something to the effect of, I'm the kind of person who blanks, or I am blank. I'll give myself as a personal example. So now I have a daily meditation practice. I sit with friends for an hour on occasion. I've done a 10-day silent meditation retreat. There was a time in my life when that felt like that would never happen because I told myself, well, I'm not a meditator. How could I do those things? So if I were to talk to myself years ago, I'd write a sticky note that would say, I am a meditator, which is now an identity that I fully believe and invest in. But the problem is we think we have to do the things before we can claim that identity. If we claim the identity first, then it makes it easy to do the things. Well, if I'm a meditator, of course I go on a 10-day silent meditation retreat. If I'm a runner, then of course I run 25 miles every week. If I'm an athlete, then of course I go to the gym 5 days a week. You adopt the identity first, then the actions follow. The problem is that we've got it all wrong and we try to make the actions the first step, and then we'll eventually get to be this person that we think we ought to be. So I invite you to flip the script a little bit there. Write yourself a sticky note. I'm the kind of person who blanks, or I am a blank. And just start to reprogram your brain in that way. If it feels really big and scary to start, can you make it a little smaller? Can you make a chunk? If it feels too scary to say, I am a runner, can you say, I'm the kind of person who prioritizes their health? You want to make it something that your brain can believe and doesn't send you into this really crazy fight or flight elevated nervous system state. You want your brain and your body to actually be able to absorb it and integrate it and start to make it feel like your own. Or if you'd prefer, you can take this exercise that we did, this future view of yourself, and maybe you hang that up somewhere. Maybe you review that every few days to remind yourself of who you already are. I can't speak for all of you, but what Jeremiah and Brian shared, those things that you want to feel like you can do and like you've accomplished, all of that's within you. There was nothing you said that was out of your reach. There was nothing you said that's impossible. None of you said, I'm going to be the first human to live on Mars, which is possible, but unlikely. You all said very reasonable things that you are totally capable of being. If Elon Musk was here, I'd let him say he would be the first human to live on Mars. I'd let him have it. But the things you said are totally within your reach. We just have to start by making your brain feel safe with them. That is the start. We don't have to berate ourselves for not being motivated, for not having more discipline. We just have to believe, well, I'm the kind of person who makes this choice. So another great hack when we're thinking about our identity and adopting this new evolved 2.0 version of ourselves is hang out with people who have the habit that you want. There's some really, really interesting research out there that says your habits are the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So take a second, think about the 5 people that you spend the most time with, and do they have the sort of habits that you want more of? Brian's skeptical. So for the meditation example, if I want to be a meditator, I'm going to tell my friend Micah, hey, I want you to invite me to meditation sits. When we have lunch, I want you to tell me about your meditation practice. I want you to tell me about your latest meditation retreat. If you want to be a runner, there's a great group that meets Tuesdays at 6 p.m. right outside Weaverville Yoga and Alluvium Brewing. If you want to be a runner, hang out with runners. People love to talk about the things that they're passionate about. They love to share that with people. They love to help people. They love to do that with you. They want to share this thing that brings their heart alive. Totally allowed to take some of that energy, take some of that prana into your own body and use that to your advantage. And it's a whole lot easier to think, well, I'm almost a runner. I hang out with runners, you know? It gets you one step closer to believing you're that person, that thing that you want to be. And then lastly, I want you to think about the words that you use when you describe yourself, both internally and to other people. So when I said, I get up and I go to a 6 a.m. CrossFit class, if that just made you cringe and say, oh God, I could never do that. Notice when you say, well, I'm not a morning person. I could never do that. You're there speaking to the identity of what you think you are. If we're trying to adopt this new identity, we need to use words that support that new identity. Or another great example, if you're trying to clean up your eating habits, there's a difference between when someone offers you a dessert and you say, no thanks, I'm trying to eat healthy, versus, no thanks, I'm a healthy eater. Such a small difference, such a huge energetic difference. You're not trying to do anything. You already are. Own this identity wholeheartedly. I know that, for example, smoking cigarettes can be different, and addiction is a whole different patterning in the brain of which I am not an expert, but think of the difference between being offered a cigarette and saying, no thanks, I'm trying to quit, versus, no thanks, I don't smoke. How different does that feel in your body? So notice how you talk about yourself. Notice how you respond to others. So this is internal communication and external communications. What are you saying about yourself? I'm not a morning person versus I'm the type of person who gets up and goes to the gym. Every word that you say, every action that you take, you're putting a vote in the bucket of the type of person you want to become. So do you want to put more votes in the bucket of staying the same? Or do you want to put more votes in the bucket of this new identity and this new you? The more repetitions we can get in this, the safer your nervous system will feel with the change. Then the last thing I have under identity, I'll let y'all keep writing. Just so excited, I want to keep talking, but I'll slow down.
Question for you.
Yeah.
Actually, more so, can you repeat? Do you remember a couple moments ago you said something about the brain? Oh man, this is horrible.
Okay.
It was just like a little good nugget of information.
About the nervous system?
Maybe.
Yeah. I was talking about how the more repetitions you have of this, your nervous system will feel safer
That's it.
adopting this new identity.
Yeah,
That was it.
allowing your brain, your central nervous system, to feel safe and secure, and then easily adapts. Okay, gotcha. Cool.
Yep.
Thanks.
You're welcome. All right. So that kind of concludes the identity section. And I can't stress this enough. This is arguably the most important part. More so than the actions is the identity. So if you do the actions without the identity work, it can only get you so far. This is your strong, steady base. This is laying the groundwork to set you up for success. So it may seem a little out there, a little bit less important, a little bit less tangible and action oriented, but it really is imperative to get you to that person that you described earlier in the workshop. So next, I'd like to talk about environment. So designing your environment to support your success. So back to that old programming, that old outdated thinking that we're letting go of, we're letting ourselves be free of the guilt and shame. We think that it's all based on motivation and discipline. Has anyone here ever been super highly motivated every single day of their life without fail ever? Yeah, exactly. We act like motivation is this driving force that will get us where we need to go. Motivation is unreliable. Motivation is not a good friend to have. I mean, when it's there, it's great, but super unreliable. Motivation is your flaky friend that calls you at 8:50 before a 9 o'clock movie and says they're not coming. So we have to let go of the belief that we need to rely on motivation because motivation waxes and wanes, and that is okay. That is human. Let yourself go of the belief that you need to be super extra motivated every single day because it's not going to happen. Relieve yourself of that suffering. So what we do instead is we set ourselves up for success. When we have motivation, we use it. When we don't have motivation, we don't rely on it. We have fail-safes and ways we can fall back on, the ways we've set up our habits to where they still happen, even when we're not feeling motivated. And you don't have to get down and critical on yourself on those days when you're not feeling motivated, because it is guaranteed to happen as a human on this earth. So the ways that we hack our environment so that we're set up for success, even when motivation is low. There are 4 tenets that this is straight from Atomic Habits. The first one, make it obvious. I'll just give you all of them and then we'll go back and dive into each one. So the first one, make it obvious. The second one, make it attractive. Third one, make it satisfying. And the fourth one, make it easy. So how do you make something obvious? Despite my best Ayurvedic efforts, in the winter, I have like chronically chapped lips. So to make it obvious, I leave a chapstick next to my keys. I leave a chapstick in my school bag. I leave a chapstick on my work desk. I leave a chapstick next to the sink in my bathroom. So I'm not always hunting for my chapstick, wondering where it is. I make it so obvious that I see it and I'm like, oh, I should probably put on some chapstick. Simple things, simple things. Or I really want to do better at honoring the roots of yoga and Ayurveda, and doing that, I want to be able to say more of the yoga poses in Sanskrit, the original language that these lineages come from. So I read a lot and I make bookmarks that have the yoga poses in Sanskrit on them. Obvious. Every time I open my book, there I go. I read the yoga pose. I read the pose in Sanskrit. I read my book. So obvious I can't miss it. It really, we're setting up our habits to take way less energy, way less energy. All right, we want to make it attractive. Believe it or not, you have to want to do it or it's not going to work. If you don't want to do your habit, it's going to take so much willpower and so much determination. You're going to burn out and fizzle out. And the thing with habits is it's a long game. Consistency is the name of the game with new habits. Doing that repetition after repetition after repetition is what builds that new neural pathway in your brain. Make it satisfying. This one's not talked about enough in the habit world. We think that we have to be super self-deprecating and I have to go to the gym and just destroy my muscles till I can't walk out of there. I have to run so long that I'm just like, I didn't even enjoy that because that was miserable and painful. No, you have to make your habit satisfying. And if you have a habit that's inherently not satisfying, I invite you to habit stack, which is another really great trick. Habit stacking. So habit stacking is taking a habit you already have, one that's already totally automated, you don't have to think about, and that becomes your cue for the next habit. So for example, when I'm done unloading groceries, I'm going to habit stack and I'm going to take my reusable bags back out to my car so I don't forget them the next time I go to the grocery store. Or when I finish brushing my teeth, which is a habit I already have, I'm just going to floss immediately right then. Because here's another one that we believe that we need to throw out the window. How many of you have ever said, oh, I'm going to do that thing tomorrow that I've been meaning to do? Just like set the intention, like, oh yeah, I have the best of intentions. I'm going to do that thing tomorrow that I said I'm going to do. Yeah, we've all done that, right? Does that thing happen? Sometimes, not a lot of the time. Putting it out there into the ether without any structure, without a time, without a place, without an intention, just saying, oh, I'm going to do that, doesn't really make it happen. So having something concrete that you can tie your habit to, a cue that is a time, a place, a location, that is going to help ensure that your habit gets done. So habit stacking allows that to happen by giving you that cue already built in. Our goal with our habits is to not to have to think about doing them, because then you have a decision to make about whether you're going to do it or not. If you take the decision out, if you don't have to decide if you're going to do your habit or not, it just happens. It's a whole lot more likely to happen and to keep happening and to get automated. And then make it easy. If your habit or goal is, I care about my health, I'd like to lose some extra weight. For some people, that's a goal. For some people, that isn't. If that's a goal for you and you're working on portion control, what if you downsize from 12-inch dinner plates to 10-inch dinner plates? Serving size, portion size, immediately taken care of for you. Easy peasy. You don't have to think about it. It's already there. The system is already set up. You want to go work out in the morning? Can you lay out your clothes the night before? This also works great for discouraging habits you don't like. If you have a habit that you don't like, you probably keep doing it because it's easy and satisfying. So how do you make the habits you don't like unsatisfying and not easy? If I've heard some really cool examples in this category. So you say, I really don't like that I, at the end of the day, will come home and just binge in front of the TV. And then I don't get anything done in the evenings and I don't feel like I'm the kind of person that I want to be, and I'm not spending any time actually moving myself towards my goals. Put your remote in a place that's really, really inconvenient and hard to get to. Put it outside in your shed. Hide it somewhere where you actually have to go walk and find it, and it's a pain, and you'd be surprised how unmotivated you are to go through the extra effort if it's not easy. All of a sudden, the habit doesn't happen if it's not easy. So for me, I wanted to save more money. I really wanted to work on my finances. So I opened up a savings account in a bank across town, did not set up online banking, did not get a debit card, didn't get checks, nothing. If I want to go withdraw money from that savings account, I have to get in my car and drive to the bank 15 minutes away and physically fill out a withdrawal form with a teller at the bank. Do you know how much of a pain in the butt that is? Do you know how often I do that? I have to really need money out of that savings account to go and do that. Make it not easy or satisfying or attractive at all. But then you best bet that my COVID stimulus checks and my tax returns get direct deposited into that account where it's very hard to go and retrieve them. You want to spend less time on your phone? Can you get a timer on your Wi-Fi router that turns your Wi-Fi off at 10 o'clock? Hard stop. So if you're laying in bed on your phone and all of a sudden you don't have Wi-Fi, it's a lot more likely you're going to put your phone down, roll over, and go to sleep than you're actually going to walk out into the living room to your Wi-Fi, turn the router back on, reset it back up, walk back into the bedroom, get back on your phone. You would be surprised how little of a roadblock it takes to discourage a bad habit. The reason you have your bad habits is because they're easy. So make them not easy. Make them unattractive, make them unsatisfying. If we're talking about healthy eating and cleaning up diet, after dinner, go brush your teeth. Are you really going to want to go eat ice cream when you have minty fresh breath? A lot less likely. Not saying this works 100% of the time, but you really just have to hack your brain. And your brain is not as motivated as you think. You take this easy pathway and put just a little stumbling block in the way. And all of a sudden your brain says, oh yeah, not worth it. I guess I don't need that. And then remember the habit stacking. That's really how I built my Ayurveda routine, you know? All right, once I brush and floss my teeth, I'm going to do oil pulling for my gums. Once I do my yoga, once that was an established habit, once that one was automated, then I'm going to sit for 10 minutes and meditate. Building on habits you already have takes out the effort, takes out the motivation, and builds in that cue for you, so it's a lot easier to know when that habit is going to happen. Some other great tools under hacking your environment are an accountability partner. It's pretty easy to roll over when your alarm goes off at 7 in the morning and say, I'm not going to go for a run today, I'll go tomorrow. But if you're meeting your friend at the park and you canceling on that run meant you had to cancel on them, you're a lot less likely to cancel. Doesn't even mean that they have to do the activity with you. You can say, hey, I'm going to text you when I've done my habit today. I'm going to text you when I've cleaned the kitchen. If you're looking on for keeping a cleaner house, I'm going to text you and I've, cleaned the kitchen. If you haven't heard from me by 9 p.m., can you please reach out and ask me if I've cleaned the kitchen? That's the other thing that we don't realize how powerful it is asking for really specific support from folks that love us. Folks that love us want to see us up level. They want to see us succeed. They want to help. Give them a job and let them help. But the best way to do this is be really, really specific with what you're asking. If you say, hey, I need you to support me in my new habit of eating healthy. That doesn't really actually instruct the other person in what support looks like and how that serves you. So instead, maybe you say, hey, on our weekly dinner date, would you be willing to cook a healthy meal with me? Or, and for my birthday this year, I'd like to go to a healthy restaurant. Or can you, stop buying me Starbucks gift cards? I really appreciate your love and support, but here's something you could do for me instead. But specific is the name of the game that makes it so much easier for people to support you. And people will want to support you. They really will. Questions about anything in the environment section?
Do you have any suggestions around phone or computer stuff aside from turning your Wi-Fi off?
Hmm. Getting a browser blocker or an app that will physically lock you out of things. You really have, that one's hard because our screens have hacked our attention spans and our happiness chemicals. So that's a hard one to break. And I found having just really strict, I wish I had better examples of names of like which ones to download. I could do some research if you want, but I'm sure they're out there that will just not let you in, is a good one. Yeah. Or if it's like nighttime, like putting your phone or even asking someone like, hey, will you take my phone from me at this time? Or if it's like, I want an hour away from my phone when I get home from work in the evening, leave your phone in the car. You'd be surprised how unmotivated you are to go get it.
The other thing is like food. Like, how do you
Mm.
like not? I don't know. I can snack on things, and I can create like a different habit for it, and I've done that. I'm just gonna like breathe. I'm not gonna go snack. That's gonna be satisfying for me, but so I kind of fall back into it.
Yeah. What I found helpful with snacks is never leave an entire container of something in your house. So if you have a bag of chips, portion your chips into Ziplocs or containers, and then you're more likely to only eat one portion. Even if it's chocolate, like separate it somehow. Put one serving of chocolate in the fridge and one in the freezer and one in the pantry and make them separate so there's space. And that can sometimes be helpful in limiting if it's quantity wise. As far as actually just like going for the snack in general, then that would be, you have to take that cue of I want a snack right now, and you need to figure out how to give yourself the same reward with a different habit. You have to do something that makes you feel as good as that snack did, or your body's going to totally reject it and be like, I'm just going right back to the snack. So maybe thinking, what are you really needing and wanting under that? Is it comfort? Is it the physical sensation of eating something? Is it,
Yeah, I
figure
imagine
out,
it's comfort.
you think it's comfort, did you say?
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So what's another way you can give yourself comfort in those moments where you get that same end result, but with a different habit in the middle? The cue stays the same, the reward stays the same. The habit in between is what changes.
Like I mentioned before, I was trying to just like take deep breaths because that like gave me a sense of comfort and calming down, but I
Yeah.
could only do that for so long,
Yeah.
and then I like kind of go back to it. But maybe
Yeah. I
there's
mean,
some.
I think you need something with a stronger endorphin release. So if you need more comfort, is that a hug or a weighted blanket or cuddling an animal? Those are things that make me feel comfy. I don't know if those would make you feel comfy, but
If hugs were available all day, I think that would be the thing to do.
yeah. Well, if they're available part of the day, you can start to lessen the power of that habit, you know? Doing
Definitely.
something is better than doing nothing.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Hmm.
Thank you.
Or even giving yourself a hug. It's not quite the same, but We can keep brainstorming.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Cool. So next section, gosh, the time is flying by. The habit of showing up. So we've set ourselves up for success. We've hacked our environment. We have our identity, which is guiding us more so than even our goals. But now here are the little nuts and bolts of implementing new habits that actually make them successful and consistent. And here's all the things you can do when motivation is low. All right, so once again, we're throwing our old programming out the window. And new programming is a new habit shouldn't feel like a challenge. A new habit shouldn't feel like a challenge. Blasphemous, I know. We all woke up January 1st thinking we were going to be able to run a marathon. The problem with the way we think about habits is we think about that end goal. We think about writing the book. We think about running the marathon. The people who write books and the people who run marathons didn't do that overnight. They got 1% better every day, and they consistently showed up. Another thing that I can't stress enough, consistency is the most important thing. %1 improvement every day. That's actually a Japanese train of thought called Kaizen, Kaizen. How do we do this? How do we make our new habit not feel like a challenge? More blasphemous stuff I'm about to say. The 2-minute rule. When you very first start a new habit, it should not take more than 2 minutes. It takes more than 2 minutes. It's probably not easy or satisfying, obvious, or attractive enough to stick. Your habit isn't always going to be 2 minutes, but just to start, 2 minutes or less. Consistency, consistency, consistency. What's going to be better over the long term is, all right, I started my habit of health with setting out my workout clothes the night before. This is an extreme example, but not even putting on the workout clothes the next day, just setting them out the night before. Start there. I know it is boring. It is not sexy. It is not exciting. It does not feel like you're getting closer to your goal, but your brain feels safe. Your brain says, oh, I can do that. Your brain might not feel safe saying, oh, we're going to go run 10 miles tomorrow. But your brain feels safe saying, oh, yeah, I can set out my running clothes. Set yourself up for success, something that is doable, something you can accomplish. It's so easy, you can't not do it. Underwhelm yourself. And then once that 2 minutes is automated, once it's so easy, you don't think about it, you don't have to figure out a cue, you don't have to figure out a reward, you just do it. Then you start building slowly, gradually. Rome wasn't built in a day. James Clear didn't write Atomic Habits in a day, although he has a funny anecdote in it about how he thought, well, if I just took 2 weeks off from work, I could just crank this book out and I'd be good. My friend Emma, she didn't just wake up and say, I'm going to run a marathon tomorrow. She said, I'm going to run a marathon in 6 months. I didn't wake up when I first started lifting weights and say, I'm going to deadlift 300 pounds tomorrow. That's my current goal, and I'm still a far ways off from that, but you have to build. But what is this doing? This is putting a vote into the bucket of the kind of person that you want to be. I'm the kind of person who writes every day. I'm the kind of person who runs. I'm the kind of person who goes to the gym. You're making your mind believe that. You're letting your mind trust yourself. and you're getting 1% better every day. That's all it takes. So underwhelming and so unsexy, I know. But think about it. What you've tried this far, banging your head against the wall, wishing you're more motivated, wishing you're more disciplined, hasn't been working for you. So what do you have to lose to try making it easy? Easy works. Our brains want to save energy. They want to feel safe. So this is your go-to. You start with your 2 minutes, you slowly build your habit, and know that doing something is better than doing nothing. So say you've built up your workout habits where you now work out an hour 4 times a week. And there is one day where your motivation is tanked. You feel like crap. You have no interest in stepping foot in that gym. Can you work out for 10 minutes instead of an hour? Can you work out for 5 minutes? Can you work out for 1 minute? Consistency, showing up for yourself over and over and over again is how you build that neural connection in your brain so strong that it becomes automated and you don't have to think about it. How we use habits to our advantage. So doing something is better than doing nothing. Can't do your full-fledged thing that day, do something. And give yourself grace. You don't have to beat yourself up about it. You don't have to come up with a story about how awful and unmotivated and just terrible at this you are. Because you know what you do after you have that low motivation day? You never miss twice. This is building momentum in the direction you want to go. This is putting votes in the bucket of the kind of person you want to be. You have a low motivation day, you don't do it again. So if you do it twice in a row, you're starting to put votes in the bucket of maybe I'm not the kind of person who does this. Maybe I'm not the kind of person who can succeed at this. So allow yourself grace to be human, to be imperfect, but never miss twice. It's like you have a boulder sitting at the top of a hill. I use this analogy in Ayurveda all the time. You start rolling that boulder down the hill. The further down the hill that gets, momentum, gravity, that boulder is rolling faster and faster and faster. It has so much momentum. We're trying to get our habits to be a boulder rolling down the hill. They're pretty unstoppable. But when you're just starting a new habit and your boulder's up here at the top of the mountain, if you're taking those first few days of, oh, sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't, you never build that momentum. You never let that boulder actually crest the hill and start to roll down and use gravity as your friend. If you miss 2 days in a row, you're actually starting to push the boulder up the hill in the direction that you don't want to go. So make that deal with yourself, never miss twice. New habits are based on frequency, not time. This is what we get wrong about habits. So yeah, I can meditate for an hour now. I'm not saying it's always easy, but I didn't wake up one day and start meditating for an hour. You wake up one day and you meditate for a minute, and then 5, and then 10. I spent a long time in the 10, 12 range, a very, very long time. Let your brain get used to it. Let your brain feel safe till it feels automated. But then what do you do when your motivation is high? What do you do on those days where you feel on top of the world and you can conquer this goal? Here's the other thing. On those days, you don't overdo it. You don't do more. On those days when you're feeling really, really motivated, it's not like, oh, I'm going to run extra miles today. I'm feeling great. Because then you're taking away from your storehouse of the consistency. And consistency is always the name of the game. You don't want to overdo it one day and then not have anything left in the tank to show up for your habit the next day. So what you do when your motivation is high is you do the things that will set you up for success later. So if your habit is eating healthy, on your high motivation day, you food prep, you meal prep. You go to the grocery store on your high motivation day. You know, if your goal is to write your book on your high motivation day, maybe you write the chapter that you've been really putting off and it feels really sticky and hard to write. On the day when you have a lot of motivation, maybe that's when you do the other just like logistical planning things. Maybe you research the kind of running shoes that you want to buy next. Maybe you go down to FootRx and you get a gait analysis. You don't have to do more of the habit. More is not better. Consistent is better. This is such a hard thing to break in people because we just think, well, I just have to do more and better and faster. No, you just have to show up for yourself. You just have to be consistent, drops in the bucket, voting for the type of person that you want to be until you are the person that runs, that writes, that reads, whatever your habit is. Another important piece to be aware of is how habits actually work. I kind of mentioned this earlier when we were workshopping with Brian. There's a cue, there's a habit, there's a reward. For all of those 40 to 50% of things you do in your day that are already automated habits, they all follow this system. There's a cue, there's a habit, there's a reward. This is helpful for building new habits because you can start to get smart about identifying your cues. These cues can be a location, a time, a preceding action, another person, an emotional state. When I'm sad, I don't think about it, but I find myself in the refrigerator eating ice cream. Your cue there was an emotional state. A lot of people don't realize that some of those things are habitual. Your cue can be another person. Do you have that friend and when you always hang out, you just drink more than you would like? Your brain might have habituated this person with a habit that isn't actually serving you. The preceding action cue, that's what we talked about, habit stacking. Habit that you just did, that's your cue to do the habit that you now want to do. So this works, like I said, if you want to implement a habit, you can get really smart about the cues and get really smart about the rewards. A new habit should feel like a challenge and you should be able to reward yourself. Seriously, how do you as a human get gold stars? For me, I would be 100% content to have a poster board on the wall where I got to put gold star stickers up. My therapist and I joke about this all the time. But what is that reward for you? Is it, okay, after 2 weeks of successfully implementing my habit, I take myself to dinner. I go get a massage. I get to go get a pedicure. Something that feels like you're really giving yourself a gift. But it's not all grind. It's not all motivation, motivation, discipline, discipline, discipline. Your brain needs those happiness chemicals, especially when you're first starting a new habit. So how do you give yourself those feel-good hormones? Have a plan. Have a date and a plan. When I do this, I get to do this. Even something simple, there's some really cool research out there about like sharing things with a group, having people get like really excited for you, like having your own cheering section, honestly does wonders to our brain. Throw yourself a party, dance around in the kitchen. Whatever it is, there has to be good feelings. There has to be a reward associated with your habit or it won't stick. The other thing about cue, habit, reward, just getting really specific on those triggers again. So remember the example we gave earlier, saying, oh yeah, I'm going to do that tomorrow. Doesn't always happen. So instead, can you really structure this? Say, I'm going to do X habit at this time, at this place. Put it in your calendar. I'm not even joking. Open your Google Calendar or whatever you use and write it in your calendar and hold yourself to it as if it were an appointment that you paid for. Keep that appointment with yourself. You learn to trust yourself when you say that you're going to do something. Building self-trust helps your nervous system, helps with consistency, and just keeps putting votes in the bucket of the kind of person that you want to be. So leaving something open-ended, saying, oh, I'll do that tomorrow. I'll get to that when I get to that. I'll meditate tomorrow. Much less likely to succeed than I'm going to meditate tomorrow in my bedroom at 6:15 in the morning. You don't have to think about the details. You don't have decision fatigue. It's decided and the structure is there. So I'm going to do X action at Y time in Z location. You've already built in 2 triggers there. You've built in a time and a location. But I caution you to be careful, be wary when you say, oh yeah, I'll get to that tomorrow. Just like putting it on your to-do list, a lot less likely to happen. The last bit about cue, habit, reward is this is a really great way to change existing habits. You have a habit you don't like that you'd like to replace with a habit that you would serve you, keep the cue the same, keep the reward the same, change the habit in the middle. Because part of that is already automated. Your body, obviously, your mind already responds to the cue. It's already expecting a reward. So what habit can you put in the middle that will give you the same reward? And this is where this one is hard for people. They say, okay, I'm going to see this cue. My cue is I want to turn on the TV and watch an hour of TV before bedtime. I'm just going to change that different habit and I'm just going to go meditate instead. Great thinking. I appreciate your initiative. However, is that meditation going to give you the same reward that the TV did? Maybe, but if it doesn't, then that new habit is relying on motivation. And it's not going to work. Take motivation out of the equation, set yourself up for success, and it is okay to get rewards, to want rewards. It's how our brain chemistry works. No shame in that. But instead of, all right, every day at 4 o'clock, I find myself in the work cafeteria eating a cookie. The cue was 4 o'clock, but you could get really curious about the reward. Was the reward the sugar? Was the reward getting to walk around from your desk? Take a walk and see if it gives you the same reward. Maybe the reward is actually, oh, I wanted to socialize with my coworkers in the cafeteria and I don't actually need the cookie. I just want to get up from my desk at 4 o'clock and go give myself 5 or 10 minutes of social time. And that's the reward. But it's a different habit. And that, the cue habit reward is from Benjamin Hardy's book, I believe. Pretty sure. Another good one if you are into reading and nerdy. So yeah, I think that's most of the hacks. Oh, the other thing I didn't mention that can also be helpful is a habit tracker. This is if you're a gold star motivated person, there's a bunch of different examples of these online. It can be a calendar and you get to write a check or a smiley face every day that you've done your habit. Let me see if I can find a good example or two and share my screen with y'all. But they can be pretty fun. Okay, these are examples, but they'll give you an idea. I have one that I really like. I'll have to find somewhere in my computer. So just a way, colors, stickers, put it on your fridge, decorate it, make it your own. You'd be surprised by how excited you get about getting gold stars. The thing I don't like about these is they're really long and there are like 20 things on them. I don't recommend that you try and implement like 20 habits simultaneously and immediately. Too much for your brain. Your brain is hardwired against change. It's not going to like it. So start with, if this is the first time that you've worked with habits, start with one. Start with one and get really good at one. Then maybe you get to the point where you're working on a couple at the same time. Maybe there's some easy ones like, my savings account at a different bank and my yoga bookmarks, like those aren't requiring a lot of mental effort compared to bigger habits. So go easy on yourself, show yourself grace, throw out all your preconceived notions about motivation and discipline. Instead, just hack the system. Make it easy, make it repeatable, make it consistent. And that's what gets you success. That 1% improvement over time is what ends you at your goals. All right. What questions do we have? Do we want to workshop any particular habits? Want to share any reflections, how this is landing, things that surprised you, big takeaways, anything at all? Space is yours.
I think a big takeaway, just in general, I guess it can kind of go like in different areas of our lives as well, is the I don't know if I want to say idea because I don't want to downgrade it to that because I feel like it's much more than that. But the concept of allowing our brains to feel safe and secure, because then at that point we're able and willing to be more open to new things. And so yeah, it was just really cool.
Yeah, I'm glad that resonated for you, the nervous system safety bit. We talk about that a lot in yoga, and yeah, hope that makes big changes easier for you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Barbara, hello.
Yeah, hi. I'm actually looking for gold stars. I used to have some in my desk drawer, and I think I should bring them out because they really are fun. I mean, they're just kind of light-hearted and little, and I think if you get too gruesome about like I must change, like
Nice.
now this year or whatever, it really it just makes it kind of moves it further away. One of the things, well, the thing I really am always looking to do is to get back to painting again because I, have a degree in fine art and I'm a painter. And then I started this yoga studio. And there's always something good to do for the yoga studio that just requires me like being at my desk or running down the street or thinking of something new. And you can't deny it's important and virtuous and good for other people, but on the other hand, so is making art. And so it's been very hard. And I think in some way I've been kind of fearfully backing away from making art and going, oh, there's one more thing I need to do for the yoga studio, and then I'll get around to it. So what you've been saying reminds me, it just kind of sparks the memory that when I was really consistently painting, I was doing it with friends. We were going out in fields and painting there, and I have this huge body of work from that time. And the idea of being that lonely all by myself, because it's very, very, I mean, painting is really solitary stuff. is daunting. I don't want to be as lonely as that again. But it's nice to have people with you who care about the same things. You can see them, from time to time. They don't have to be there every single moment, but it's just nice to have a posse. It's nice to have other people who care about those things and can keep you focused on it. And the other thing I thought was, in terms of identity is kind of on its own. I mean, it's important, and we sort of pin ourselves down by knowing something about ourselves. But to me, it's also a part of like a longer context as your life story. And your life story is changeable. You can actually get in there and say, well, our story to this point, but here's a surprising twist, and you can get in there and go, oh, look at that. Something really you wouldn't have anticipated happened there. And the story took a new turn. I like to think if I can get some paintings done this year, I can have an art show and have a party.
Yes.
Can soon have the party as have money and renown and even people appreciating my art. I just want to get it done and then go have a party with people.
Yes.
I think it would be great.
Oh, that's beautiful. What a lovely example. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I hear that you want to get back to this part of yourself that you miss and do it with friends and have that connection and that expression. And I'll be so bold because I know you to say, man, I wish you had a really great studio manager that you could delegate some of that yoga studio work to. I wonder if
I
you
have
could
one,
let
but
her
she's really busy getting a great education this year. So I'm trying to keep it light on her as much as possible.
help. Fair.
She just bought
Another
a house and she's got a dog and she's got a lot of things happening in her life too.
fair. And another thing that comes to mind with that is when it's easy to get caught up in the busy and the doing, and there's always one more thing to do, is time blocking, saying, I'm going to work on the studio from this time to this time. No matter what I'm in the middle of, when that time comes around, I'm done working on the studio. That also could be used for painting. I'm going to schedule an appointment with myself to paint at 2:30. And then, when you have a doctor's appointment at 2:30, it's like in the back of your head, you kind of plan your day around. You're like, all right, I got to eat lunch before then. I got to be ready because 2:30, I have to be at this place. Have that same sanctity of that appointment, but with yourself, saying, I will do everything I need to do so that I'm ready and prepared to paint at 2:30. Yeah. Yay. Let me know how I can support you in your art show.
Okay.
Okay.
We can have it at the yoga studio.
Yes. Perfect.
I like it because it's a kind of convergence of me doing your habits workshop and actually being able to do a show at the studio. That would be really satisfying.
Yes, yes. Lovely. Well, Brian, did you want to share? Are you feeling complete?
I was just gonna share a little bit about like the identity piece, like just hearing that that's like a really important part of it. It's good for me to remember. When I started doing Qigong, I was like calling myself a Qigong devotee. I was like, this is what I am, and like it really helped me to, I guess, just like build that practice. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like kind of thinking about like, I was like, uh, I'm a good sleeper. Like, is that really true? Maybe I go to bed early. Like,
There
that's
you
an
go.
identity I can have. Like,
Mm-hmm.
seems to work.
Yeah, I'm the kind of person who goes to bed early. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's solid.
Mm.
And
And I
the
do.
more that you do this, the more repetitions you have, the more your brain will trust yourself, and it's easier and easier to make changes because you've done it before and it's succeeded,
Mm. Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Cool. Well, I will send a follow-up email tomorrow, probably with the recording of this call for you to have. I also was going to type up some notes, just kind of bullet points and things I went over, and share that as a Google Doc, if that would be helpful for folks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And I'll see if I can find some examples of habit trackers that are a little more exciting and enticing than the huge graphs that I saw in that Google Shirts, but I'll find the one that I really like the most and send that over as well. Any other resources that would be helpful that you would want as follow-up?
What are those? What would those be?
I don't know, whatever you think would be helpful. I can send a book list of habit books. Whatever you feel like you need. We can have a follow-up habits date in a month and everybody can check
Yes,
in with
that's
their
what
new
I was
habits.
thinking.
Yeah.
A follow-up habits date would be great. Could we do
Okay, I can totally do that. I'd be happy to.
that? Okay.
I care about everyone here and would love to see them together and succeeding. Cool. And I really nerd out about teaching this stuff, and I feel like it's so helpful and so useful and so practical, and people don't know that they need it. So my ask when I send this follow-up email is I'll leave a space if you enjoyed the workshop and got value out of it and wanted to leave some sort of review or commentary. It's just always really challenging for me to market this workshop because I just don't know how to explain to people like, you need this. So I'm hoping some good positive feedback from past participants would potentially help when I teach this workshop in the future, because I think there's so much value in it. So if that calls to you, I'd be very appreciative, but zero pressure. Yeah. Cool. Anything else, my friends?
Thank you so much for the workshop. And
Ah,
super valuable, really helpful.
thank you. Thank you. I appreciate all of you very much for being here. Good luck with your habits.
See you in a month.
All right.
Thanks, Kimber. Thanks. This is
Thank
great.
you.
Yeah, thank you. This is good.
Nice to see you, Brian.